looking into some elements of the future in the case. There's a great section in 1 Kings 21. You ever heard of Naboth? How about Naboth's Vineyard? Anyone? Naboth's Vineyard. Okay. Naboth was a landowner, and he had a very beautiful vineyard. And the king of Israel at the time was Ahab. And Ahab saw his vineyard, and he wanted it. And so he went to Naboth, and he said, hey, I will give you money or another piece of land for your vineyard. And Naboth refused him. And so Ahab went home, and his wife, appropriately named Jezebel for some reason, you can't make this stuff up, right? Says to him, what are you upset about? And he says, well, Naboth will not sell me his vineyard. And Jezebel says, don't worry. So Jezebel goes out and she says, bring Naboth in front of the people and send these two men to accuse him. Call him a man who blasphemes the Lord. And then they will take him and stone him to death. And they did. The two men went out. They accused Naboth. And he was taken before the people and stoned and killed. And guess who got his vineyard? Ahab got Naboth's vineyard. Now similarly, if you go over to Nehemiah, in Nehemiah you have the people of the Jews lamenting that their children are being born into bondage and into slavery, that they have no more land to call their own because their land has been mortgaged by who? Their government. And now they're paying taxes to the government in an effort to preserve their own land. Our situation today is not unique. I want to read you one more thing from 1768. This comes from a guy named Silas Downer. Now, I could replace just a couple words in here, and it would sound almost exactly like the predicament Western landowners face today, or as the government would like to call you, a permittee. We, His Majesty's subjects, who live remote from the throne and are inhabitants of a new world, are here met together to dedicate the Tree of Liberty. On this occasion, we cheerfully recognize our allegiance to our sovereign Lord, George III, King of Great Britain, and Supreme Lord of these dominions, but utterly deny any other dependence on the inhabitants of that island than what is mutual and reciprocal between all mankind. It is good for us to be here, to confirm one another in the principles of liberty, and to renew our obligations to contend earnestly therefore. Now, just like in 1768, as they began to lament the imperial control of American land, so Western landowners for generations have lamented federal control. And we finally, after a fairly long respite after the Sagebrush Rebellion, got a group of men who were willing to stand up and engage in direct action to do something about that. And that was not received well by the federal government. But direct action is simply one element of what must be done. Direct action alone is not enough. One, it's going to take a fairly large critical mass for it to work. I want to propose to you that there are a few things that also need to go along with that direct action. And specifically, if you're going to engage in direct action, there are multiple types of political action that must take place alongside of it. So first, most of you are here today, I assume, to get a little bit informed or to get somebody else who's with you informed. Perhaps to take the information that you glean to someone else and inform them. You know, there's a great leader I look up to who says, first you get informed, second you get educated, and third you get organized. Well, after you've gotten a little bit informed, you need to get your neighbors educated and informed. And let me ask you something. I have a good friend who helped participate in the Bundy trial. He's not here tonight. His name is Rick. and along with Marcus Mumford, who was co-counsel, an incredible attorney. These two gentlemen put in an unbelievable amount of time. Marcus, of course, got tased, as you know, and tackled by federal marshals for his work and is now being prosecuted by the government for his activism and representation of the Bundys in court. My friend Rick told me, he said, look, I've got a metaphor that I use to represent kind of what the problem is that we have with the government today. And he uses the days of the week as this metaphor. And I'm going to start with Tuesday because I want you to think about Monday when we come back to it. To give you an idea of the challenges we face. Tuesday, I'll use to represent civics. Who teaches civics in America today, generally? What do you think? Where do most people learn of civics? I'll use Tuesday because Tuesday is the day we vote. Wednesday. Let's use Wednesday to represent health and wellness. Well, who controls the health and wellness industry in America today? Okay, Thursday. Let's use Thursday to represent banking and the economy. Who controls the economy in America today? All right, Friday. Let's use arts and culture for Friday. That's date night, right? Who controls arts and culture in America today? Saturday. That's the day we all recreate, right? We go to the beach, we go to the lake, we go camping. How many of you have been camping in a wilderness area lately? Who controls our recreation today? I have camped for 16 years in the high Uintas of the Utah wilderness. And just recently they've enacted this rule that you can't camp within a quarter mile of a body of water. In this place I've been camping for 16 years. How about Sunday? What does Sunday represent? Religion, right? Who controls religion in America today? You might be thinking your church. What is your church today in America? It's a 501c3 organization designated under the IRS code. Monday. What is Monday? Monday's education. This is a tough one. Who runs education in America today? Where are we sending our kids 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, to the very government that is incarcerating these men and women, killing them, and taking our land? And we wonder why our kids are growing up having a hard time understanding liberty. Now that's something I'm going to let you think on, and I'm not going to talk too much more about it because it tends to create a little controversy. And I don't like to be too controversial. But think about that. Because if you want a change, you better start thinking about who's educating your kids. Now, we've worked on behalf of Jeanette recently to try and help her with her situation with the BLM, because after her husband was killed, and after the men who joined with him at the Malheur Refuge, sorry, Ken, if you're here, the Harney County Resource Center. After all that, the BLM still decided to refuse a widow her permit. And to this day, in spite of Arizona state law and federal law, which acknowledges she has a right to continue to use that permit, they have continued to deny her her right to graze. Now that's a serious problem. And it goes back to the challenge of getting informed, getting educated, and getting organized. Because when you begin to think about those things, direct action, as I mentioned, is not enough. There must also be political action. There must also be legal action. And I know what you're thinking, the system is corrupt. Now I want to try and draw a distinction. between a corrupt system or a corrupt person and a systemically corrupt system, okay? And our justice system can be looked at a little bit as systemically corrupt. But guess what? Thank goodness for that Oregon jury, because it found those men in that first trial not guilty. And that's right, Shauna. And Shauna. Love you, Shauna. I sat right in front of Shauna every day, and every time I turned around, she was smiling. So you women know things we don't, that's for sure. In spite of all, and just to give you an idea, the judge in the Oregon case refused to let Ryan Bundy read the Constitution in court. One day, this is not a joke, one day he tried to read scripture, and she said, "There will be no reading of scripture in my courtroom." And I couldn't help but think of like the Dark Ages when only the priests could read the Bible, right? All you lay people, stop trying to read that Constitution. And that's what it felt like. But I want you to realize something. The Oregon case had a lot of lawyering that went on. And as much as we hate lawyers, I know they're fun to joke about, it was a lot of work. Marcus Mumford, who was first chair in the trial, was up, just like me and Rick, pretty much every night till about 4 a.m. He'd then wake up, and he'd be at the courthouse by 8, ready to go to trial every day for 2 months. Matt Schindler, who was an incredible attorney out of Oregon, worked incredibly hard. Bob Salisbury, Lisa Maxfield, all of them, Tiffany Harris, Shauna Cox, who represented herself, Ryan Bundy, who represented himself, the hours that went into the legal work to make that happen was significant. And if you think for one moment that we can just drop the ball on all the political and legal organizing that needs to happen, you're in for some sad results in the future, because we have to get behind every single one of those efforts, just like the other side of the fence has done. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate Jeanette Finnecum's willingness to do that. She has been willing to carry on the legacy of her husband, not just through events like this, but she's also fighting the BLM legally. Because Chris Ann Hall's a better speaker than I am, and she should be up here. And so should the Finnecum family, because I know that's who you really want to hear from. Let me give you one more challenge. How many of you remember what Senator Wyden said? Yeah, they needed to stop the virus from spreading. And that was said prior to them coming here to John Day, Oregon. Not only that, but Governor Brown had an assistant within her office, and they did an information dump after the death of Lavoie. And in that, we found emails from her staff saying that they should stop them at the exact place that they did. That was Governor Brown's office, because they wanted to stop the virus from spreading. Now, what she doesn't realize is you're not the virus. You're the cure. And you have an obligation. You have an obligation. The cure was meant to come here 1 year ago. And you need to take it everywhere from here. That is your obligation. To spread the cure, which is liberty, right? An individual liberty at that. to the rest of this county until those people who made that comment and forced that stop no longer hold office in this state. And thank goodness for that Oregon jury. Let's make it so that every jury is filled with jurors like that. You are the cure. Spread it far and wide, and you're going to have to organize. Get informed, get educated, get organized.